Scott, come on up here, please. And especially, you got to tell us about your dad.
That's the main thing that gets me started. Of course, the Lord, I give the support to the Lord first. But my father started up a business, Jesse and Sons. Well, first it was Jesse's Barber Shop. My father first was a black man from Alabama, New Bern, Alabama. And as soon as he graduated, he wanted to get out of there, and he moved out, I believe, the same day that he graduated. My father went to Pittsburgh. This is in the early 50s. Wasn't too much work there, and then he went to the military. Of course, the Korean War broke out. He never was in combat, but he went through his terms of being in there and almost went to combat, but he came out and came to Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was a hard time for blacks back then to get jobs here, or good-paying jobs. He was trying at Harvester. They hired him. The gentleman came down and told him, what you're doing here, you're 50 pounds less than that was intended. So he got fired. My mother was trying to talk him into going to barbering school, but he kept on putting it off. But he ended up going, and that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to him. They moved down to Indianapolis, and he went to barbering school, worked down there. He finished and came back up here and started with the deceased councilman, John Knuckles, gave him his first job. He ran Councilman Knuckles' shop. And at that time, Councilman Knuckles, he was getting into the arena, and that's what helped out my father for running his shop. It was perfect. Of course, my father ran the shop for a while, but across the way there was an old shop across from the Hannah Street where we're at now. He was across the way, but there was an ice cream shop there. And he ended up leaving Knuckles to start his own shop. That's when Jesse's Barbershop started. I believe that was back in, 1957, 58. It brought us through real good. He had 4 children. I remember I was born in '64, and this is very unusual, especially for a barber, but he had a house built out south in 1967. That was kind of unheard of for blacks at that time. And they especially didn't think a barber would be doing that. So a lot of people thought my father was a doctor or lawyer when he was in the addition, but I told them, no, he's a barber. They just wouldn't believe it. But, of course, my father raised us in the shop. It was real good for us. The long hair came in the 70s, and it knocked him down for a few years. My mom went to work and helped out. But how I got involved in it, later on in the 80s, my father's always had sugar diabetes, and it was getting pretty bad, or it was getting worse. And his business, he was talking about leaving it later on, but it was a very flourishing business. And at that time, I was a commercial artist down in Indianapolis for Logo 7. And it took him a while to decide to quit that, and I went to barbering school. And I basically came to Fort Wayne to cut with my father in May of '92. Me and my father, it took me a while to decide to do this because my father, like Eric knows my father, and that he's a very hard man sometimes to get along with. At least I'm the son, I'm saying that, because he's very, very opinionated. So it took me a while to decide to go work for him because I thought we'd be bumping heads. And of course we did, but that's not what I've gained from it. That's nothing to even think about. I started working there, like I say, in May of '92, started cutting hair. Was kind of mad at him because I worked one Saturday and made so much money on a Saturday, I didn't realize how much money I could make barbering. And it was phenomenal. And staying there, learning from the other barbers, my father, and the other black men, it was mainly a black shop, so we had a few whites that came in, but just basically learning from the elderly men on how to raise your family, how to, whatever word you give, stick to it. They taught me entrepreneurship. So I was cutting hair for a while, and I had the idea of starting another shop, which basically learned from my father. And I opened up another shop called Barbers on the Boulevard. It was placed in the old Jim K's Pizza shop over on South Anthony and Rudisill Boulevard. I put 3 chairs in there. I didn't cut there at first. I put 3 barbers in there. They ran it very well. James Hopkins, Chris Cork, and I have to think of the next, Harvest Higgins. And they did a very wonderful job. And they moved on to open up their own shop down the road. Like a chain link, just moving on. Of course, you bump heads at times, but like I said, I still admire them and what they do. I passed on the shop. I went in there, started cutting for a while, and another gentleman named Jeff Hill came in. And then I started, an idea came to me from one of my clients about a business I started up. It was called Technicom, where I provided telecommunication technicians for subcontracting for other companies. But needless on all of this, it basically stems all the way back there, Eric, is from learning from my father, Eric's father, and older black men I was meeting and how they were doing things. Eric's brother, it was just they was teaching how to pass things on. And even if you had a business and you got rid of it, still passing on the legacy of getting another business started or the entrepreneur thought of it. People put down Fort Wayne a lot. Sometimes there's not a lot to do here, and I've been around different places of the world, but I always like to come back to Fort Wayne. It's a good place to raise the family. You don't have too many problems here. It's been good for me. That's basically the whole thing on how I got started. Was basically I have to give it to other black men who came to Fort Wayne and knocked the barriers down for myself. And that's basically how I got started there, Eric.
Okay, I'm going to ask you here a lot of things here because you touched on some things. You mentioned that you were, in a way, reluctant to go and work with your father.
Yeah. Because
you made clash.
I knew we weren't going. We never really got along. I never knew my father a lot because he was at work all the time taking care of business. My mom raised us. People used to say, "Oh, you wait till your father gets home." No, my mom took care of business, and then if my dad came home, he just was told what happened. And I was more, I won't say fearful of my father because it wasn't like he ever spanked me. My father only, I think, hit me twice in my life, but it was needed at the time. It was a spanking, but how strong my father was. I try not to make him mad, just because he was a very strong man. He would get up, take care of business, just wouldn't try to cause any problems.
But the reason I brought that up is a lot of times, just like my father too, we bumped heads all the time. And again, I didn't understand it until after he had died.
Exactly.
Because you know, and I know other people, men who have trouble with their fathers, and they don't know why. The answer lies in you've got to watch the Discovery Channel and watch how animals communicate. And what you might take as a threat to you, you know, it's like you got to watch the bears, you got to watch the dog packs, the big cats, because when you watch those, you know, we're all in the animal kingdom, and that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. He's like that because he's saying that you need those type of attributes, because when somebody comes at you, you will revert to your father when you deal with these people.
Basically, he's trying to teach you. And it basically goes back, I think I probably didn't get along with him so much because I'm Junior Jesse. The fruit didn't fall far from the tree. Basically, wherever I can point to my father is me. One thing, though, I would have to say, though, me and my father, still we clash. We kind of live a little edge, but I know one thing. My father respects me very much, and it's because of my family life. I married a young lady, and her name's Tamara Williams now, but it was Tamara Wallace. We have 5 kids, me and her, not outside of the family, me and hers. You don't see that a lot in black families, or if you do, it's by different, you know, men or women. 5, back when I was coming up, 5 kids in one family, that was a small family. Now, if me and my wife walk down the street with our kids, they think it's a horde of kids, you know, but it's not. It's just showing how society's changing.